Let's start today's Bhagavad Gita discussion. We are having Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge and text number 9, 9.9, and the title is The Lord is Always Neutral. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ते वासुदेवाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
Narayanam Namaskritya
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
Tato Jayamudiraye
ततो जयमुदीरये
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu
नष्टप्रायसु अभद्रेषु
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
भगवती उत्तम श्लोके
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी
Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text number 9. Na
न
cha
च
mam
मां
tani
तानि
karmani
कर्माणि
na cha mam tani
न
karmani
च मां तानि कर्माणि
nibadhnanti
निबध्नन्ति
dhananjaya
धनञ्जय
nibadhnanti dhananjaya
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
udasinavad
उदासीनवद्
asinam
आसीनं
udasinavad asinam
उदासीनवद् आसीनं
asaktam
असक्तं
teshu
तेषु
karmasu
कर्मसु
asaktam teshu karmasu
असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
nachamam tani karmani
मां तानि कर्माणि
nibadhnanti dhananjaya
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
udasinavadasinam
उदासीनवददासीनं
asaktam teshu karmasu
असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
nachamam tani
न
karmani
च मां तानि कर्माणि
nibadhnanti dhananjaya
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
udasinavadasinam
उदासीनवद् आसीनं
asaktam teshu karmasu
असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
nachamam tani
न
karmani
च मां तानि कर्माणि
nibadhnanti dhananjaya
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
udasinavadasinam
उदासीनवद् अदासीनं
asaktam teshu karmasu
सक्तं तेषु कर्मसु न च मां तानि कर्माणि
nachamam tani karmani
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
nibadhnanti dhananjaya
उदासीनवद् आसीनं
udasinavadasinam
असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
asaktam teshu karmasu
न च मां तानि कर्माणि
nachamam tani karmani
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
nibadhnanti dhananjaya
उदासीनवदासीनम्
udasinavadasinam
असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
asaktam teshu karmasu nachamam tani karmani
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
nibadhnanti dhananjaya
उदासीनवदासीनम्
udasinavadasinam
असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
asaktam teshu karmasu
न च मां तानि कर्माणि
nachamam tani karmani
निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय
nibadhnanti dhananjaya
उदासीनवदासीनम्
udasinavadasinam
असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु
asaktam teshu karmasu. Anybody online? nachamam tani karmani nibadhnanti dhananjaya udasinavadasinam asaktam teshu karmasu nachamam tani karmani nibadhnanti dhananjaya Udasina Badasinam Asaktam Teshu Karmasu. Synonyms: Na, never.
never.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Mam,
Mam,
me.
me.
Tani,
Tani,
all those.
all those.
Karmani,
Karmani,
activities.
activities.
Nibadhnanti,
Nivatnanti,
bind.
bind.
Dhananjaya,
Dhananjaya,
O conqueror of riches.
O conqueror of riches.
Udasinavad,
Udasinavad,
as neutral.
as neutral.
Asinam,
Asinam,
situated.
situated.
Asaktam,
Asaktam,
without attraction.
without attraction.
Teshu,
Teshu,
in them.
in them.
Karmasu,
Karmasu,
in activities.
in activities.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Translation: O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am never detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. Translation with repetition: O Dhananjaya,
O Dhananjaya,
all this work cannot bind me.
all this work cannot bind me.
I am ever detached from all these material activities,
I am ever detached from all these material activities,
seated as though neutral.
seated as though neutral.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
One should not think in this connection that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no engagement. In his spiritual world, he is always engaged. In the Brahma Samhita 5.6, it is stated, Atma Ramasya Tasyasti Prakritaya na Samagamaha. He is always involved in his eternal, blissful, spiritual activities. But he has nothing to do with these material activities. Material activities are being carried on by his different potencies. The Lord is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. This neutrality is mentioned here with the word Udasinavat. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activities, he is sitting as if neutral. The example can be given of a high court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged, someone is being put into jail, someone is awarded a huge amount of wealth, but still he is neutral. He has nothing to do with all that gain and loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral, although he has his hand in every sphere of activity. In the Vedanta Sutra 2.1.34, it is stated, Vaisamya Nirgrihnye Na. He is situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to these dualities. He is not situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to these dualities. Nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entities take their different forms in the various species of life according to their past deeds, and the Lord does not interfere with them. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we have a wonderful verse from the Bhagavad Gita and the chapter entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. It's called the Rajavidya Yoga, the most confidential knowledge. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratyaksha Avagamyam Dharmam Susukhum Kartum Abhyayam. So this confidential knowledge, this most confidential knowledge, Rajaguhyam. In English we have positive, comparative, and then superlative. Good, better, best. Guhya, Guhyatara, Guhyatama. Guhya is confidential, Guhyatara is more confidential, and Guhyatama is the most confidential. So Lord in this chapter is declaring before telling that I'm going to talk about the most confidential knowledge. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram, Idam Uttamam. This is the most purified. Uttamam, this is the topmost knowledge. Pratyaksha Avagamyam Dharmam. Actually, the beauty of this knowledge is this is not something which you have to understand by some speculation. You have to do a lot of intellectual jugglery. No. Pratyaksha Avagamam. You can directly perceive this. Susukhum Kartum Abhyayam. And this is performed joyfully. So this is the power of the knowledge. This is the power of the chapter that we are discussing. And also in the beginning, Krishna says, Moksha se asubhat. Yajgyantva moksha se asubhat. So when we hear this knowledge, we will be free from all kinds of material anxieties. Interestingly, we live in a world where this is called the age of outrage, right? Where our attention span is very small, and to capture our attention span, something very dramatic has to be done. And that dramatic that is done also has to be done for a very small span of time. If it is done for a longer period of time, people don't have patience. So with that kind of a mindset, when we enter into the knowledge, which is the most confidential knowledge, we will be disappointed. What is it that Krishna is telling? It will not make sense. It requires a little bit of the mode of goodness, little bit of sanity. Because these words may appear maybe not very significant to me, but there is a lot of significance, because that is why this is called the most confidential knowledge. It requires that mindset to absorb, internalize, assimilate, and practically experience it in life. So what is this verse that we have? The verse is very interesting verse. Let us see what Krishna is talking. So actually the first 3 verses Krishna talks about the most confidential knowledge, and from 4th verse onwards he's talking about this series of knowledge about himself. So this is the verse that we had in the last class. Prakritim swam avastabhya vishrajami punah punah bhuta gramam imam kritsnam avasam prakriter vasat. These words, Sanskrit words, they may look very similar. Kritsnam is not the same as Krishnam. Gramam is not the same as village. Avasam is a very interesting word. So when we read a verse, when we pay attention, those verses come alive in our lives. Like for example, this verse that we had in the last class on Sunday. Prakritim swam avastabhya vishrajami punah punah bhutagramam imam kritsnam avasam prakriter vasat. The word kritsnam means totally, completely. Bhutagramam. Bhutagramam is referring to all the created living entities. Bhuta is living entities. Gramam is like together. Like we say, the people came together. The community came together to participate in the festival. So in that sense, the word gramam is used. So bhuta gramam. So all the living entities together, imam kritsnam, totally, avasam prakriter vasat. These words which Krishna uses are very powerful. One is avasam. The word avasam means helpless. Often life puts us in situation where we are completely helpless. We just go through. It is not that only somebody goes through that situation and somebody is an exception. No. All of us, we go through this motion of life where, the time, it takes away the vitality of our life. It saps the vitality. We become old, we become dilapidated, we become diseased, and we become dead one day. Avasam. And it happens without our control, without our will. So, bhutagramam imam kritsnam avasam prakriter vasat. Though it is happening, we are doing this, it is getting done helplessly, but we are always under the control of prakriter. Prakriter vasat. The modes of material nature are acting on us. They are influencing our actions. They are influencing our desires. And at the same time, we are helplessly going through the motion. So what happens when we are going through? What is it that Krishna is talking? He is telling in the first 2 lines, Prakritim swam avastabhya vishrajami punah punah. When the annihilation happens, Prakritim swam avastabhya, all these living entities, they enter into me, my body. Prakritim swam avastabhya vishrajami punah punah. And again I create. Vishrajami punah punah. Our acharyas talk about all these upasargas which are there. Srijami is to create. Shrij dhatu comes from the same word like shrishti. This comes from the same root word shrij. But when you add a V talks about the variegatedness. Vishrijami punah punah. It's not like, everybody who are conditioned living entities are born with similar kind of taste, similar kind of nature. No, everybody has a different way of enjoyment, different taste. And based on the different taste which evolves over a period of time, that taste decides their next life. And they continue. Vishrijami punah punah. The Lord is doing this. This is what we saw in the last verse. What is the verse that we have today? But before we go there, I was talking about that avasam and prakriter vasat. There's a very nice verse which comes in the 13th chapter where Krishna says, Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam gunasangasya sadasad yoni janmasu. When people often wonder about how we take birth in different families, what decides? How do we take birth? What is the cause? And people often wonder and they feel maybe by chance it is all happening. But this 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita gives very deep insight. Purushaha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakritir jan gunan. So Purushaha, all living entities, when they are situated in Prakriti, when they are coming under the influence of material nature, when we are accepting material bodies, Purushaha Prakriti Sthohi Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan. They want to enjoy. Depending upon we are subservient to material nature, the external energy. Being subservient to this external energy, yet we have that desire to enjoy. Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan. So we associate with different modes. Karanam Guna Sangasya. And based on the association, we develop different desires. And based on the desires, we take different bodies. Sad, Asad, Yoni, Janmasu. Sometimes we take birth in good families, Sad, or in very Asad Yoni, very, very degraded Yoni. Yoni is taking birth in the womb of some particular mother. Sad, Asad, Yoni, Janmasu. There is a mystery of birth which is revealed by Krishna. How does it happen? The moment the living entity comes under the influence of the external energy of the Lord, still he wants to desire, but that desire is under the control of material nature. Based on the control of material nature, when somebody wants to enjoy, he associates with different modes. Somebody is in the mode of goodness, he develops a particular kind of enjoyment. Somebody is in the mode of passion, he develops a different kind of enjoyment. Somebody is in the mode of ignorance, he develops a particular kind of enjoyment. And based on those desires, one gets different bodies. Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. Let's move on to today's verse. Very interesting verse, very simple verse. As I always say, if you break down the verse and if you understand what Krishna is telling, the verse becomes very clearer. The understanding and appreciation of what Krishna is trying to tell will be very, very clear. So the verse is Nachamam Tani Garmani Nibadhnanti Dhananjaya Udasina Badasinam Asaktam Teshu Garmasu. So if you see, you have to always see who's the object, who this verse is spoken to. You may say this is Arjuna, but there is a reason why different words are used by Krishna in different verses. Like in 9.7 I was talking about Kaunteya. The verse which Krishna uses, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim yanti mamikam kalpakshay punastani kalpado vishrijami aham. Here Krishna is addressing Arjuna with the word Dhananjaya. And there is a significance of it. We will come to this. So this verse is spoken to Dhananjaya, Arjuna, who is addressed here as Dhananjaya. What Krishna is trying to say here? Tani karmani mam na nibadhnanti. Tani karmani mam na nibadhnanti. So he is talking about some work. What is that work? We will see. Tani karmani mam na nibadhnanti. This work that Tani karmani, some kind of work, they don't bind me, Krishna is telling. Tani karmani mam na nibadhnanti. Why Krishna is not bound by this karmani? The reason being, teshu karmashu, while this karma, these activities are performed, there are two characteristics which are mentioned. Very powerful, those two characteristics. Udasina vadasinam and asaktam cha. So we will see each of these things, but to understand the verse very nicely, Krishna is talking to Arjuna. Arjuna is addressed here as Dhananjaya. Krishna is telling, Tani karmani mamna nibadhnanti. Some work he is talking about. Those work don't bind me. Tani karmani mamna nibadhnanti. Why? Teshu karmasu. While doing that work, I am asaktam and I am udasina vadasinam. So what are those words? We will see each one of them closely and see Prabhupada's purport, how Prabhupada explains this very beautifully. So first thing is Tani Garmani. What do you think? What is it referring to? Tani Garmani. Correct. Which he has mentioned in the previous verses. Prakritim swam avastabhya bishrijami punah punah. Prakritim swam avastabhya. So when the Brahma's day, the fabulous lifespan of Brahma comes to an end, not the day, entire 100 years, then all the living entities enter into the pores of Mahavishnu. As we all know from the Vedic scriptures, for the creation of this material world, Krishna transforms or expands into three Vishnus. Mahavishnu or Karanodakashai Vishnu, Garbhodakashai Vishnu and Kshirodakashai Vishnu. Without the Lord entering into this matter, creation is not possible. So the Lord enters, first he lies down in the universe as Mahavishnu or as Karanodakashai Vishnu, and from his pores, from the perspiration, comes out water which submerges the universe half. And he is lying in that ocean, and from his pores all these huge universes, unlimited universes are coming out. So, and in each of these universes, he again enters as Garbhodakashai Vishnu, and again he lies down in the ocean, in the Garbhodaka water, and he is lying there, and from his navel comes Brahma, who does the secondary creation. But when he is doing the secondary creation, the Lord enters in each of these atoms as Kshirodakashai Vishnu or as Paramatma. That is why this whole world is sustaining, otherwise it's not possible. So he's telling Tani Karmani, Prakritim swam avastabhya bishrijami punah punah. One, he is withdrawing, he is taking all these living entities within himself, and he is again doing the creation, Vishrijami punah punah. Punah punah, that too, this is happening repeatedly. So one may question, one may wonder, Krishna is doing all these activities. So, we all know that from previous chapters, that if somebody does any action, he gets a reaction. So is Krishna getting reaction? That question may come. So Krishna is clarifying that for us. Tani karvani nibadhnanti dhananjaya. Na nibadhnanti. Nachamam tani karvani nibadhnanti dhananjaya. This karmas, this action that I am performing, they don't bind me, because I am beyond I'm transcendental to this modes of material nature. I don't come under the laws of material nature. So, Tani Karmani Mamna Nibadhnanti, Prabhupada talks about in the lecture one verse where he says, Karmana Badhyate Jantuhu. The contradiction between Lord and us, it's a very gross, we cannot just assume the Lord to be the same as that of us. Just because the Lord appears as a human being with two hands, so we often think, how can the Lord do some things like, marrying 16,108 wives and things like that. Some kind of things come because we think through our contaminated material intelligence and mind. The Vedic scriptures are telling, Karmana Badhyate Jantuhu. There is an invisible rope which binds us. And that rope which is binding us is called Karmana. Karmana Badhyate Jantu. Any action that we do, doesn't matter whether it is a pious activity or whether it is a sinful activity. The result of that activity is we get bound. Prabhupada gives this example. Sometimes, somebody who's there in a prison, because of his higher position or some noble this thing, he might be given a very special cell. He might be bound with a golden handcuff or golden chains. Somebody who has done some very grossly foolish and criminal activities may be bound by something which is like iron chain or iron shackle. The point is everybody is bound. Doesn't matter whether you are born in a higher planetary system like a Devata, or you are born in the this middle planetary system like human beings, or you are born in a lower species of life. Karmana badhyate jantuhu. So this karmana, by the actions that we are performing, whatever actions we are doing, we are getting a reaction, and that reaction binds us in this material world. It's an invisible chain by which everybody is bound. But Krishna is telling, Tani karmani mamna nibadhnanti. The activities that I am performing, I don't get bound by that. And he is saying why he doesn't get bound by that, and that we will see. There is another place where Krishna says in the similar manner, it comes in the 4th chapter, 14th verse, very interesting verse. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha idimam yo bhijanati karma bhirna sabadhyate. So this comes in the Transcendental Knowledge chapter, 4th chapter. Krishna says, Namam karmani limpanti. There is no activity which binds me. Namam karmani limpanti. The words, if you see, they are similar. Namam karmani limpanti. And here he is telling, Tani Garmani mam na nibadhnanti. They don't bind. Nibadhnanti and limpanti are similar words. Namam karmani limpanti. Name karma phale spruha. Neither I am attached to the result of activities. I am not looking for some results from that activity for my sense gratification. There is no spruha. There is no desire. Name karma phale spruha. Itimam yo abhijanati. The very interesting thing. You may say, okay, Krishna, he is the creator, supreme Lord, he is beyond the laws of material nature because the laws are created by him, so he has to be beyond this. But very interestingly, he says, another person, any one of us, if we understand that Krishna is not bound by the laws of material nature, then we also become free from this karma bhir nasabadhyate. Itimam yo abhijanati karma bhir nasabadhyate. If one knows about this nature of Krishna, that Krishna is not bound by this material laws or material action, then he also becomes free from the reactions of his action. It's a very interesting verse. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. Many people don't know that Krishna is beyond these laws of material nature, and there is no reaction for his actions. That is why in the 4th chapter Krishna says a lot of things. What is it related to this verse that particularly that we should know? Janma? Karma is there. Janma karma chame divyam. The activities of the Lord are not ordinary activities that we do where we get bound. That karma that the Lord performs are called pastimes, or those are by his own sweet will that he is doing this. And they are called divyam, they are transcendental. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha. If someone understands this in truth, in totality, in completeness, tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam eti swarjuna. When the person quits the body, he does not take birth again. He doesn't come into this material world. Rather, he comes back to me. This is Krishna's assurance. Here also he is telling, Itimam yo abhijanati karma bhir nasabadhyate. Abhijanati is one who understands this. This is the important word. One who understands this in truth, Prabhupada is writing. Itimam yo abhijanati karma bhir nasabadhyate. He also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. So to understand, that is why this is called the most confidential knowledge, to understand the position of the Lord, to understand what kind of activities he is doing, to understand this, to understand our inferior nature and our relationship with him. This will be very nicely brought out by Krishna. At the end of this chapter, when somebody comes to the conclusion, there will be clarity in terms of what we need to do, and there will be clarity as to how I can work in this material world, yet not get bound by the reactions of the work. That's a promise. That's why this is called the most confidential knowledge. But all these secrets are revealed in small dosages. And one has to have the mercy of the pure devotee spiritual master. When somebody sees those, then his faith gets built in these scriptures and he come to the logical conclusion. Let us see the next word. So we saw Tani Garmani mamna nibadhnanti. Krishna is telling that I don't get bound by the actions that I perform. Why is he not getting bound? So he has used two words, udasina badasinam and asaktam. Let's see this word udasina badasinam. What is the thing that comes to your mind when somebody says, ve udas hai? He's udas. Udas is a word which is used in Hindi. Maybe in Telugu also, I don't know if they use that. No, no. They use something similar. Udas. Morose. Ignoring, yeah. Yeah, somebody is saying something?
Yeah, it is used, the word udasin.
What is the meaning?
Like a bit liberal, kind of.
Liberal, okay. What is udas? Sad, morose. Udas बैठे हैं. कभी क्या हो गया ना मैं उदास हूँ. I am very udas. Maya का दास सदा उदास. Krishna का दास बिंदास. That's what they say. A person who is a servant of Maya is always udas. उसका life में हमेशा कुछ गड़बड़ चलता रहता है. But this word is not used in that context. Krishna is not udas. It is udasina. And very beautifully we have to understand this. Ut, asina. These two words when they combine they become udasina. Udasina vad asinam. When you go a little deeper. I'll show you how much you can learn from this Sanskrit, even though this is not our natural language, we don't speak in this, but the Sanskrit language is so refined, and there are so many finer subtleties which when we see, our appreciation for these verses go up. Udasina vadasinam. Asinam is to sit down. Somebody is sitting, but udasina, he is sitting at a top position. So when you are sitting at a top position, what is happening is you are not affected by what is going on below. Something is going on. Means let's say you are on the ground floor and somebody is sitting on the first floor. Okay, so maybe in the ground floor there is some flood or something and people are struggling and those things. But the person who is sitting in Udasina, who is seated in a little elevated position, he is unaffected by that. Udasina Vadasina. Prabhupada gives very wonderful example to illustrate these points. So he's telling the neutrality is mentioned here with the word Udasinavat. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activities, he's sitting as if neutral. Prabhupada gives the example of a king giving punishment to a criminal. Very interestingly, let's say there is a criminal who's brought, okay, and the criminal has done some robbery, or he has stolen, or he has done something abominable, and the king heard everything, and he says, put him behind the bars. Okay. Now, who is going to put him behind the bars? Is the king personally going to take him and put him behind the bars? The soldiers. Soldiers will do that. So, if the soldiers are doing, is king responsible for that action? Is he responsible? But he is not doing, no. Actually, the soldiers are taking him and putting him in the jail. Order is given by king, but king himself is not doing it, right? By the direction of the king, somebody else is doing. So Udasina is giving this example, Prabhupada is giving this example. At the same time, it is all happening by the direction of the Lord, but Lord is personally not involved in this. By His will, by His direction, by His order, material nature is doing this. You are put into this kind of a situation. You are prakritim swam avastabhya. You are entering into the material nature. You're not entering into, it's all happening by the Lord, by the direction of the Lord, but the Lord is aloof. So king punishing a criminal is the example that Prabhupada gives in the lecture, and in the purport also Prabhupada is mentioning here about a high court judge sitting on his bench. Actually, if you see, the high court judge's position is little elevated. Other people will be in this thing. So he is giving someone that someone is awarded a huge amount of wealth, but someone is put into the jail, someone is hanged. But you can't say that because he is doing these actions, he is giving this verdict, he should be punished or he should be rewarded. Because he has given this verdict that this person should be hanged, so now the reaction will come to the judge. No. The judge is Udasina. He is seated in an elevated position where he is not affected. Based on the karma that these people have done, he is giving them the judgment that this has to happen to this man, or this has to happen. Somebody will get some award or money and this thing, and whatever it is, based on the karma that they have done. So, but he remains neutral. So the example can be given of a high court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged, someone is being put into the jail, someone is awarded a huge amount of wealth. He has nothing to do with all that gain and loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral. Often people blame that because of the Lord, all these things are happening. There is a famous atheist who takes this argument that if you go to a cancer hospital, where cancer hospital for the children, if you go there and you see how much of suffering they are having, and they are children, so they have not done any sins or any misdeeds as such, and they are going through so much of suffering, that means the Lord is not present. The Lord is not present because if had he been present, he would have had that compassion and he would have protected this children from this kind of disease, and hence the God doesn't exist. But what the people don't see, he is Udasina, he is neutral. He has got nothing to do with the suffering or the enjoyment that a person undergoes. Based on the previous karma, he is awarded certain positions, he is awarded certain things, but the root cause of that is their past activity, not the Lord's. Lord just sanctions, but he is always neutral. Vaisamya Nairgranye. So this is the Vedanta Sutra which Prabhupada is quoting here. There are few Vedanta sutras which are quoted in Bhagavad Gita, and one of them is this Vaishamya Nairgrinya, and Prabhupada explains that. We will come to that in a minute. The other word that is used is Asaktam. Very interestingly, what the word Asaktam means. What is the meaning of the word Asaktam? What is Asakti? So Asaktam means attached. We are not attached. So it is Viraktam. Actually, we are not attached to the fruits of the activities. Prabhupada is writing, when there is an intention to fulfill the desire and effort for the same, then there is binding by karma. When we do any action, if we have an intention, if we have a goal in our mind that I want to enjoy the fruits of the action, I want to fulfill that desire, and there is effort put by me to enjoy that fruits, then I get bound by the reactions. Then I get bound by the karma. When there is an intention to fulfill the desire and effort for the same, then there is binding by karma. But Prabhupada is saying that we should take the example of the Lord. If you don't want to get bound by the karma, what you should do? You should act udasina vadasinam and asaktam. You should act in a manner where you are not attached to the fruits of the results, and udasina vadasinam. Udasina vadasinam means you are doing only for the satisfaction of the Lord. You are not doing anything for your own satisfaction. These two things if somebody does, like the Lord is na nibadhnanti, the karmani, the activities that he is performing, he is not bound by that. Similarly, a person who is also acting in that manner, asaktam and udasina vadasinam, then he will also not be bound. One interesting thing which we have to see, which Prabhupada mentions in the lecture, when somebody is doing an action, suppose you did an action and that action was very well intended, that you wanted to enjoy in this material world, and you worked hard for that, you spent some sufficient time, and then you got the desired results. So what all things are temporary here and what all things are permanent here? Think for a moment. Maybe you can use the mic. What all things are temporary? The happiness or the satisfaction that we get out of it is temporary, because the result that we get is not a permanent one. It lasts only for, it has a beginning and an end. Also, the action that I perform also has a beginning and end. But when we are getting the results based on the actions that we are performing, what we are not seeing, that when we are getting the result, we are getting bound by that invisible rope of karma. Everything is temporary, but that but is, there is a, because of the desire to enjoy in this material world, the action that we are performing is binding us. So that is why there is a reason that we should have this asaktam. We should be detached from this material world, detached from the results of our action, and we should do it as a matter of fact. Very interesting example which is given in the scriptures is that of a nurse. Like a nurse, when she is there in a hospital, when somebody is delivering a baby, she is going and telling the family members, congratulations, you have been blessed with a baby. At the same time, in another word, if somebody is dying, she is going and sharing the message of condolence to the family members, saying that I'm sorry to say, but she's not attached. She's neither elated nor she is so sad or morose. That kind of an attitude is exhibited by the Lord by the word udasina. But the word Krishna uses here is called udasina vat. And the word vat is translated by our acharyas as neutral. If you say he is neutral, that means he has got nothing to do with this. That means, he is just aloof and he is just there. It is not just he is aloof, he is in control, but he is acting as neutral, as if he has got nothing to do. There is a difference between udasina and udasina vat. Interestingly. So he is not situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to this dualities. What is this dualities? We are all, this conditioned living entities, we are exposed, or we are experiencing this dualities, heat and cold, mana and apamana, like fame and infamy, happiness and distress. But the Lord is not situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to this dualities. Nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entities take their different forms in the various species of life according to their past deeds, and the Lord does not interfere with them. What happens is, the desire to enjoy is there in the soul who's trapped in the body. And as long as that desire is there in the desire to enjoy the material world is there in the soul, it continues to accept different bodies. This is the fundamental thing. And there's a very wonderful story which I have come across. It's a very interesting story, and that will lead to the conclusion of what we are reading. What is the point that we are trying to get out of this verses that we are seeing? The story that I heard a few months back, I don't know, maybe I would have shared this earlier, I don't remember, but I don't think so. There was a pickpocket in Mumbai. Mumbai is full of pickpockets. So there was one pickpocket who was very expert in jeb katra, in cutting the this thing. What do you call this? Purses? No, pockets. So he is very expert. He was so dexterous in all these crowded things he would do, and he'll do it so silently nobody will know, and he'll take the money. He'll take the wallet. So over a period of time, he became very rich. Business was growing. He is becoming expert. He is doing this opportunity in every single place. And then one happened. He thought, now I'm growing my business. I should find someone who is also another pickpocket. Then we can marry, and our family will prosper. We will grow. So he found one lady who's a pickpocket, and she was also very good at her job, and they got married. And so they got married, and the business even expanded further. They were able to have big house, and they were doing nicely. And then it so happened, like it happens, once you get married, you will look for a baby. So when they were looking for a baby, the lady was pregnant. They both were standing before the Lord and praying that our baby should be a very high quality pickpocket, so that our family tradition will continue. And they were praying very sincerely and all, and then thought, if that happens, then the Lord, if He is merciful and He sanctions, then we will take our business to the next level. Lo and behold, they got a baby, a child, and he was born in a hospital. But when the child was born, they noticed that his right hand fist was closed. The right hand fist was not opening. So they were thinking, if he is going to be a pickpocket and if his fist is not opening, it's going to be a big problem. So they were trying to find out what is the reason, why it is not opening, and they went to different doctors. They were showing, and everybody tried different things, trying to pull. It's a small baby's hand, but they were not able to open the fist. So then after a lot of research, they finally decided that they should go and meet a psychologist. So the psychologist heard, okay, this guy was a pickpocket, he became expert, and he became big, married to another pickpocket, and they have prayed sincerely to have a pickpocket child. That means he must have that desire inside his mind already. So that means he's got something in his hand which is so precious that he doesn't want to leave. So what he did, he said, you come next day. And the next day when these parents visited that psychologist, what he did was he made a very precious necklace of, made up of some very valuable jewels and stones and very precious stones. And he brought that and he kept it just next to that baby. Lo and behold, the baby opened the hand, and there was a ring in that hand, and he got the necklace. That ring was the ring of the nurse, and the nurse was searching for the ring which was missing. The point I am trying to say is this desire or the intention to enjoy the material world, it comes with our birth. So that is why there's a very nice verse which comes in the Bhagavatam. What is the highest yoga? Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is the highest yoga. Verse is a very interesting verse. Danam swadharmo niyamo yamascha shrutam cha karmani cha sadvratani sarve mano nigraha lakshanantaha parohi yoga manasah samadhi. Translation is, whether you are doing charity, whether you are doing your prescribed duties, whether you are observing major and minor regulative principles, hearing from the scriptures, pious works, and purifying vows, all have as their final aim the subduing of the mind. Indeed, concentration of the mind on the Supreme is the highest yoga. If we really want to purify our mind, if we really want to disentangle ourselves from this reactions of the various actions that we are doing, if we really want to make this life as our final life in this material world and ultimately go back to home, back to Godhead, which Krishna keeps talking about, what is that? 15th chapter. Natad bhasayate suryo na sasankana pavakaha yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. There is a abode of mind where you can come, where you don't have to suffer, where you don't have to struggle. Natad bhasayate suryo na sasankana pavakaha. That doesn't require external illumination. If you want to come to that place, then you have to purify. And the purification, the highest purification, whatever, whether you are coming to temple, you are listening, you are doing charity, you are doing prescribed duties, ultimately you should pray. Somehow my mind should be absorbed in the Supreme Lord. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is the highest yoga. When we do that, then the mind becomes purified. Even if I'm unsuccessful in this life, even if I'm not able to achieve the perfection that I'm looking for, that desire, that effort that I'm putting will never go in vain. So in the next life, instead of desiring to become a pickpocket, you will think how I can desire more to think about the Lord. And that way we'll become purified and we will go back home, back to Godhead. So in summary, this verse, what it is talking about is this two words which Krishna is using here called Tani Garmani Mamna Nibadhanti Teshu Karmashu Asaktam Cha Udasina Vadasinam. So Tani Garmani Mamna Nibadhanti. The work that I am doing, which is Vishrijami and Prakritim Swam Avastabhya, this annihilation and this Vishrijami, the creation which I am doing again and again, Punaha Punaha, I am not bound by that. Why? Because Teshu Karmeshu Udasina Vadasinam and Asaktam. I am unattached to those activities. I don't have any desire. And Udasina Vadasitam, I am neutral. So if we learn these two things in our life, like we saw this example also of 4th chapter, where Krishna says, Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha. Itimam yo abhijanati karma bhir na savidyate. Itimam yo abhijanati. If somebody knows about the nature of the Lord, that no action binds him, and he doesn't have any desire to perform any action, then he becomes free from the reactions of the work. So, and then we saw the meaning of those two words, Udasina, Vadasinat, and we saw some examples which Prabhupada is giving. And then we saw also Asaktam, and then we took the example of the pickpocket to drive home this important point, that ultimately it is our past misdeeds, it's our desire that we carry from our past life, we continue in this life with that same desire to enjoy. But if you purify that, that is the highest yoga. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. Any question? Yes, please. Can you use the mic if you don't mind?
Being neutral, reflecting the qualities of Krishna in our life, being neutral. Does that mean I should not have passion? How do I apply this? See if I want to complete a project or something. Does that mean I should not have any passion?
It's a very good question, and it's a common question which is asked, that if I take up to this path of spirituality, should I become completely void of passion, or the urge to succeed, should I get rid of that? The answer is emphatic no. Had it been the case, nobody would have taken this path of spirituality, or it would have been considered as elusive to or is it just exclusive for some people to practice? Not majority can do that. Very interestingly, these things are revealed in this Bhagavad Gita. In the 5th chapter, Krishna talks about karma sannyasa yoga. So where he is giving this example of a lotus which is in the material world, but it is not of the material world. So, it is there in the midst of filthy substance. But that is why this is called pankaja. Panka is all, abominable, impure substances. But from there it is growing. The consciousness within is very, very high, elevated. What matters is what external work we are doing, that doesn't matter. But what is the desire, what is the intent that I have? That makes all the difference. When the intent behind doing the work is to please Krishna, every action can become yajna or sacrifice. But when the intent behind doing the work, you would like to have some success in any material work that you are doing. But ultimately you should know that the enjoyer of this fruit of this work is Krishna, not me. So when I engage that the fruit of the work that I am doing in Krishna's service, I become neutral. When I use it, Atmendriya Priti Vancha Dhare Kam Nam. So when we are trying to satisfy our own senses, that is called Kam. Krishnendriya Priti Vancha Dhare Prem Nam. When we are trying to satisfy the senses of the Lord, then that is called Prema. When we understand who we really are, what is our constitutional position? When that understanding dawns, then our action automatically becomes purified. When I think I am this body and actions that I am performing are meant to satisfy my bodily demands, then I am doing karma and getting reaction for that. When I understand I am spirit, soul, I have got nothing to do with the body. I am completely aloof and different. Then the action that I will be performing is meant to serve the Lord. That is where, so externally the action may look same, but internally, deep within, the person's intention is very different, and that is what it makes the difference. Does it answer?
Yeah. Thank you.
Very interestingly, our Vedic scriptures give a very nice analogy. Like, in Christianity also they have a lot of parables, small examples which can drive home a very strong point. So the example which is given, which Prabhupada often quotes, the difference or the distinction between the bird and the cage. Very simple example. So there was a very rich businessman who purchased a nice bird and a nice cage. And the cage was bedecked with very valuable, precious jewels, very, very precious jewels. And he was always trying to polish that. He was trying to make it like glistening, bright, dazzling, and he would keep it in a place where it gets the maximum attention when people will come and they will appreciate. So beautiful cage. He will have a nice background so that the cage looks very good, or the sunshine falls so that people can appreciate the beauty. Little does he realize that there is a need of the bird which is not met just by polishing the cage. Same holds true in our life when we are trying to heavily we are invested in the bodily concept of life. We think we are just this body. You see nowadays there is so much of people are so much having this kind of passion or obsession where they want to change their lips. They want to change various parts of the body by doing some artificial surgery because they think when some part of the body becomes different, the acceptance or appreciation from the society will be more. But it is such a fallacy because ultimately we have to leave this body which is temporary. And we don't realize like there is a need of the soul, there is a need of the bird which we are not aware of, we are ignoring that, it leads to only disasters. And furthermore what Prabhupada says is, another powerful thing is, suppose, even if you say, okay, whatever it is, I don't know the need of the bird, but I'm just taking care of the cage. Is there any return on that? Say, for example, I put some efforts, I'm putting some investments in something. I look, what is the return on investment? Prabhupada is saying the return on investment is zero. It is a sunk cost. You're just trying to polish the cage, you're doing heavy investments. Ultimately, what happens is this bodily concept of life is binding you with the reactions, and finally, ultimately, you have to leave this body and go. So it is a sunk cost where people are involved, which is making them in a lot of anxieties, anxious in their minds, and they're worried and disturbed. Simple thing, if somebody just understands the goal of life, his constitutional position, that we are servant of the Lord. Service something is something which cannot be separated from us. Right now we are trying to serve Maya. That's why we are Udas. Maya Gadas Sada Udas. But Krishna Gadas Vindas. There is nothing to worry about. Any other question?
there was mention of Lord, although watching is like as if neutral, not taking any stand towards one or the other. So that means just when we turn towards him, his reciprocation will immediately.
So he is neutral means the action is performed on his behalf. Without his sanction, we saw the previous few verses, he's saying it's always the will of the Lord. Ultimately, the Lord desires the creation to happen, it is happening. But he's personally not involved. It is happening through his agents, through his potencies. Like external agent, the external potency is doing this. So what he's saying is neutral. He's not interfering in the action of the people. Whatever you have desires, whatever past misdeeds or good deeds that you have done, the so-called Papa and Punya, people don't know about this. That Papa Punya has repercussions. People think that I can get away with anything that I do. But no, all these actions have reactions. So the Lord is neutral. The moment thing changes when somebody surrenders. Surrender is different from actions. That is why ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tatheva bhajamyaham. Then the Lord personally takes charge. And sarvadharman parityaja, if you come to that, you surrender completely, then the Lord is taking away completely all your sinful reactions. Otherwise, the action and reaction, based on your this thing, it is going on and Lord is neutral. But surrender is not an action. Surrender is a state where somebody, when he is reciprocating, he is coming towards the Lord, Lord pulls him out from this mire of material ignorance. Thank you all for attending this wonderful Bhagavad Gita. We'll see further what Krishna says in this chapter, the most confidential knowledge. The thing that he will reveal is, if Krishna is neutral, who is doing this action? Where does this desire come from? That will be revealed in the subsequent verses. We will see that as we proceed. Granthra Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.